You know what Pa told me the day Gabe was born?
What's that?
It takes everything to raise a child, mijo. And I don't mean money, or time, or patience. I mean everything. When you give everything, it's hard to know what to do when you lose everything.
Out of all characters that I've done in regards to talking about the Walking Dead Telltale series, David would probably be up there in terms of how complicated his character is to decipher. Since it's been a while since I played the third season of Telltale's The Walking Dead, I've decided to go back and replay it, and of course during that time I was deciding on who piques my interest to talk about first, and David came up. So in this video I want to try to understand David as a character and really get down on how he is as a character. Starting in Season 3, the first appearance of David is in the first few minutes of starting the game, as we see our main character, Javi, running down the street, eventually meeting up and proclaiming to David tried his best to get to his family's house since they had an emergency. We find out that Javi and David are brothers, Javi being his younger brother. He gets furious over the fact that Javi wasn't there sooner enough, in which he gets aggressive towards him physically as well as verbally, saying how bad of a son he is and saying how he didn't even try to be there for his family.
Please, I tried.
Oh, you tried? You fucking tried?
Everyone's here. They've been here for days, and where the fuck were you?
We're there, all around him. People who love him all around him. And he's scared. I'm seeing the panic in his eyes, and he's searching the room. ¿Dónde está Javier? ¿Dónde está mi hijo? I'm there, right beside him, holding his hand. Like a good son.
Soon after David's son, Gabe, comes out to see what all the commotion's about, David and Javier dodge the situation and tell Gabe to go back into the house. The two calm down and David goes on to say how he loves him despite what just happened. But what's interesting is that David goes on to say how he's jealous of his brother and takes account of the fact that Javi's lost more than he ever will in his life, and goes on to say what happened to Javi would turn out to be a good thing since the family would need him sooner or later.
You think I was jealous of you?
No, I don't think anything.
Well, I was. For a long time. You've lost more than I'll ever have. But maybe something good can come out of all this. 'Cause we need you here.
Now for context, before the outbreak happens, Javier was a professional baseball player. The problem though is that Javier decided to gamble and bet on his own games, which inevitably caused the downfall of his career, as well as going bankrupt to the point where he couldn't even surrender $10 when him, David, and their father were playing dominoes.
That's $10 you owe me. Both of you. I know you're broke, Javi. You should sit out the next game since we all know I'm gonna win.
Which is why when David said that he lost more than he ever would in his life, that's what he meant. Anyways, the family gather around the living room mourning for the loss of their family member. But with the price of being in the Walking Dead universe, Javi and David's father comes back to life, but not in the way that they thought. The family got into a situation where they had to take down their undead family member as well as take the mother/wife to the hospital since she got bit on the face, trying to see how her husband was supposedly alive. David and Javi make a plan to where David decides to take their mom to the hospital while Javi and Kate get to the van to take the kids with, as well as the uncle who was the first person to really confront Pa. Which in the introduction we see that the uncle got bit while trying to see what was up with the father. And so we get a time skip to the present day where the zombie outbreak is pretty prevalent. Now the next time that we see David is at the end of the episode 2 where Javi, Kate, and Gabe are pretty surprised to see that he's alive since they haven't seen him in roughly 4 years. Now there are flashbacks within Season 3 that gives us some clarity as to what happened at certain points in the story. For example, one of them is being where Javi and Kate were searching for supplies for the house in which they had been staying at the same house for the past 3 months, waiting for David to arrive back. Eventually though, they decide to leave, and from that point they've been on the road ever since until they get to a point where they have to get gas. Which this decision makes it to where Javi meets up with some bad guys who take him away from his family, and she eventually escapes from the help of Clementine. He arrives at a nearby settlement called Prescott to heal up. He then goes back to the spot where he got kidnapped to find his family. Javi meets up with everyone, but unfortunately Mariana ends up dying from getting shot by bandits. Javi and the group deal with the bandits, and so Javi eventually buries Mariana. Javi goes back to Prescott to have his family heal up until the same bandits that killed his niece come to Prescott. Despite the choices he makes, Prescott gets overrun by the bandits, which causes Javi and his family and some of the people that he met in Prescott to run away. The group arrive at a spot where they discuss what to do next, and so they all decide that going to a place called Richmond is the best chance they have to be safe. Which leads us to the point where Javi and the group eventually arrive and meet David. Now from this point onward is where David's character starts to really get interesting. So upon Javi and the gang arrive at Richmond, David tells his crew to lay down their weapons as he takes Kate and Gabe inside to get treated, while Javi and the rest have to stay back and get quarantined first before stepping inside. Javi and the group discuss what they should do in the meantime while they stay there. Not too long and David comes by, only to take Javi with them to meet up with Kate while the rest of the group stay back. During their conversation, we get to learn that David is apparently one of the leaders running Richmond, which is actually the new frontier, which in this game is the settlement in which everyone is afraid of. Also, we get to see David's reaction as he finds out that his daughter, Mariana, got shot and killed by his men, in which, to be honest, he doesn't seem too fazed upon hearing that information. We in addition get to know that Javi has to impress the other 3 leaders in order for him to stay in Richmond, which what David says as a piece of advice says to not talk or mention about them killing Mariana. The two eventually get to the hospital to see Kate, and you can clearly see that Kate is very uncomfortable around David, so much to the point where she fakes being in pain for him to leave the room, that way she can talk to Javi about why she feels scared about being in Richmond and being in the presence of David. David soon comes back and they resolve the problem, but Javi and David soon had to go to the 3 leaders to see if Javi can stay within the Richmond walls. Now before I go further, there are a few clips that I feel are very important to go over that gives us a better understanding of David. One of the clips that I want to talk about is the flashback of both Javi and David where they spend time with one another at the batting cages. During this time, Javi and David do their thing until David gets frustrated, which entices Javi to want to understand why David is feeling the way that he's feeling. David then goes on to say to Javi that he's always been selfish and looking out for himself. Furthermore, he says him and Kate's relationship has been going downhill and that he thinks the best thing for himself would be to re-enlist in the army, believing that would help his family. He asks Javi whether or not he would look out for Kate from time to time to help while he's gone.
You don't understand because you only think about yourself. And I'm sick of it. It's been that way for years. You've always been looking out for yourself. My job sucks. Kate and I fight like cats and dogs. I belong back in the army. I had a purpose there. I had respect.
Last time you deployed, you didn't have kids. So, whatever you do now, you gotta put them first.
I am putting them first. That's why I have to leave.
Things between me and Kate have been going downhill for a while. But if I left, it seemed like that would be best for everyone. I can't keep pretending this is the life I want. I'm not gonna lie. If I go, it's gonna be hard on everyone. Kate may need help from time to time. You can help, right? You won't leave her hanging?
It's really dependent on whether Javi tells David it's his responsibility to look after his family, or if he actually supports David and goes on to help Kate from time to time. This clip, though it's only one, shows us a lot what we need to know, and from what I've gathered from analyzing David is that for one, he projects himself towards other people, and by other people I mean Javi. If you think about it, David essentially put all of his responsibility and problems on towards Javi, and pretty much Javi became the person that David should have been. In another way, I believe that David looked down on his brother, whether it be an extreme level of jealousy, so much to the point where he allowed Javi to be in the quarantine zone and let him be kicked out of Richmond, rather than taking him in the first place with Kate and Gabe. He essentially gave off to Javi, "Thank you for doing my job that I was supposed to be doing in the beginning, and so to give back, I'm kicking you out towards the wayside since now I'm going to keep my family safe." I mean, the guy said it multiple times telling us that he's going to be the one to take care of them now, and that there's no need for Javi to be involved. But to go through all that for the past 4 years, taking care of your brother's family when you could have left them to fend for themselves, all the hardships, the pain, the suffering, all that for you to meet your brother and him giving you the short end of the stick by taking his family back, for him to throw you out like some tool. You can clearly see the repercussions of David essentially not being there for the family and not changing for the better. Even though Javi does convince David to not re-enlist in the army, it doesn't exclude David from not being there for the family. You can be present physically in the household and still be distant from your family. It happens. Kate being the biggest influence of David's actions. Granted, their marriage wasn't great before the outbreak, but for David to be gone for months without coming back didn't make the situation better. So when we see David actively try to be loving towards his family like everything is normal, you can clearly see the disparity towards one another. Another clip when you see Javi, David, and the gang arrive in one of the rooms after Richmond slowly falls apart after the public attack outside. When David ends up attacking one of the soldiers since she was threatening Javi and Kate for Richmond falling down, notice how David made a move that he thought would get validation and approval from his family to make up for his actions, since at this point, he knew that his family were slowly separating themselves from him.
No! Burn!
Holy shit!
Oh my God! David!
Oh my God! Dad!
You're welcome, Javi.
That dead guy!
Okay? Don't thank me.
No!
David! Gabe! I'm sorry, that was an accident.
You were going to kill her!
She was going for her gun!
Look at her!
Gabe,
She can't even stand up! What the hell is wrong with you?
He was just being safe, Gabe.
That doesn't mean she has to die! That isn't the answer for everything!
Gabe, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that to you. You know that.
Why the hell are you all looking at me that way?
They're scared, David.
Of what? I'm protecting them.
Why are you pointing a gun at us?
This leads me to the other clip where Javi and David are talking with one another on top of the building. This event takes right after the attack David made. In the conversation, David states that he's a soldier at the end of the day and nothing else. But the next thing that he says is that he wants to change and that he always has, admitting that he always tried to get Javi to change since he himself couldn't. This right here proves to us that everything we just went over with makes sense. Him telling Javi is selfish when he's really telling himself that because of wanting to re-enlist and not take the responsibilities he has. Being jealous of Javi because he knows himself he can't deal with the struggles like he has. Not taking accountability and changing himself for the betterment for his marriage, in which he instead asked Javi to look after Kate. All this stuff adds up.
See that sewer line over there? Perfect placement for a trench. That hill about 100 paces west of it. Sniper's wildest dream come true. I'm a soldier, Javi. I see this landscape like a painter sees a blank canvas. Like how you used to see a baseball diamond. I'm a soldier. This makes sense to me. A soldier isn't a husband. Or a father. A soldier is a soldier. Nothing else. Nothing. Nothing at all. I want to change, Javi. I always have.
Really? All you ever tried to do was get me to change.
Only because I couldn't bring myself to do it first. It's the one war I could never win. And I'm wondering why. Is it because I don't know how? Or because it's impossible to change who you really are?
But what's really weird is when the group get to the garage where all the vehicles that they needed were, they get to a decision of whether or not to leave as a family or go and help Richmond from the horde. David then suggests that since everyone is here, they should have a fresh start, leave as a family, and leave Richmond to die. Notice how despite David saying that earlier he wants to change, and now he seems like he's doing the right thing by having a fresh start, taking everyone with him, when he says to Kate arguing against going to Richmond that she'll die out there and he knows a losing battle when he sees one.
I'm still going back. I won't be able to live with myself if I don't try to help the people in Richmond.
You won't be able to live at all if you do that. Richmond is compromised. Doesn't matter if there were 5 of us trying to save it or 500. We'd all die. I know a losing battle when I see one. We're moving out. Everybody get in. That's an order.
How fucking dare you? What will it take, David? What will it take to show you that you do not get to do that? We are not your soldiers. Run away home. Be a deserter. I am done with you.
Take note that David did the exact same thing he just did in a different way. Earlier in that clip where David said that he can't take the relationship with him and Kate anymore, that his job sucks, thinking the kids would be better off him not being there, making Javi step up and fix his problems for him, that he would rather run away to re-enlist, it's the same narrative except he's running away from fixing the problem that he and the others caused, ruining Richmond. Why try and fix it knowing it will be a challenge when you can just run away and take the easy route? Which is exactly what David is doing here. And it doesn't help that David isn't trying to understand and see from his family's different perspective on things, or rather how they feel. If he really wanted to take the first step to change his ways and be better as a brother, father, husband, and overall a better person, the first thing that I personally believe he should have done was apologize. Apologize for not being there, for leaving the family, for not being a better husband, and understanding his partner as in how she feels about him doing certain things, placing his burdens on his brother, being a better brother, his daughter's death. You get the drill, but you get it? Obviously afterwards, then look within himself and see what he needs to do for himself to be a better person. Now of course there's different endings depending on the choice of whether you go to Richmond or follow David and Gabe. One of the endings, however, where you follow David and Gabe is an ending where they both end up alive. The thing though is that David now proceeds to tell Javi that he can never change and that forgiveness is impossible at this point, saying also that since the day that their father died was the day where everything changed. I think the main reason as to why David thinks this is really just from what just occurred with what happened at the garage, where David doesn't truly understand the way of his actions and how they played an effect with his family. And now since he's finally dealing with them, he fully succumbs to not wanting to put any sort of effort and fully believes that he can't make a difference anymore.
Forgiveness, ask me to my face.
There comes a point where forgiveness isn't possible anymore. I can't change, Javi. I want to, but we're in a war that's never gonna end. I was kidding myself. We're never going home. That hope died the same day we all drove away. Same day Pa died.
He gave up so much so that he slowly walks away, not wanting to even take a glance at Javi or Kate, since they and everyone else have a different look to them. So my takeaway from all this and really understanding what I'm getting from David is that he wants to be free in a way, as a soldier. He understood that while he was in the army that everything around him was the place that he belonged. And so to now have the responsibility as a father and a husband, he realizes that that's not his place, nor his want, as he was very adamant about wanting to re-enlist despite his responsibilities taking a toll. Which is why when he communicates with his family, it's like he's some sort of general commanding his fellow soldiers to do what they're told.
We are not your soldiers. What will it take to show you that you do not get to do that?
And soldiers to fight, not people. That's why a lot of the times it seems David doesn't really take into account his family's feelings or perspective, that just goes with whatever. Despite the horrors, the outbreak was the perfect getaway to escape his problems. I'm quite sure that he had plenty of opportunities to come back in the 3 months he had before Javi and the rest left the house. I'm sure if Lee can do it going across however long to get to Clementine, I'm sure David can do the same. Maybe he was inside really grieving for his family to come back but didn't have the courage to face his problems again. Overall, David had problems that he couldn't within himself fix because he firmly believed that being a father, husband, and brother was too hard to bear, and that he himself believed that he wouldn't be able to change for them to become a better individual. Not really understanding how he feels or really how to express them, since the battlefield and being a soldier was all he ever knew.